Okay.
All right, so we just want to run through the questions, just go in order of them, see what everyone thinks about them.
Okay.
All right. So, what did Midgley claim the meaning and value is behind philosophy? Who wants to begin the conversation?
What was your last question? I'm sorry.
What was that?
What was the last thing you said? I couldn't hear you clearly.
I was just asking the first question.
Oh,
See,
okay.
started.
Um, I kind of said that um she's basically just trying to explain how philosophy is supposed to like increase our understanding of how we see ourselves and how we just look at the world, and that uh it's just a constantly part of our life. And you can use it for like to like navigate through like your ideas or like thoughts and challenges. And it kind of just helps us be more self-aware.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought that he like kind of outlined the idea that it's almost like an overarching kind of ideal for all of life in general. And you can kind of like use it to kind of like pick between different pieces of things that you're going through within your own life or your own like mental processes that you're thinking about. And it's kind of cool to be able to use philosophy kind of as like a route that allows you to have this overarching view of like, all right, like when you find these like routes to like kind of be okay with certain things that you're thinking about or you're experiencing in life. Um, I think that that's what his main idea was, saying that his main values of philosophy are just having the ability to kind of take like a more objective view on life in general and kind of like the world and all of our opinions in general, whereas kind of like the extreme opposite of like the specific sciences where you're kind of looking into like one specific little detail that you're like intrigued about. And yeah, and it's like the flip side of that where you're kind of just like taking it and looking at anything and everything like an expansive view. What do you guys think? Were any of the views surprising to you guys? Just about like, I don't know, like how explorative philosophy is in general?
I thought like it's surprising how practical it is too, how you can use it in everyday life, and how it can impact like world issues, but then also your own personal like growth and your own personal conflicts.
I agree. It can kind of help form your perspective on life in general. It's really, I've noticed it at least that it's, or I was surprised how useful it is, and just thinking about these problems you have. I mean, in a way, I mean, philosophy is just created partially because of the problems that people have, but it is practical and applicable.
Your mic kind of faded out a little bit. It was better when it was, I think you angled it up slightly. I mean, you sound a little clearer.
I'm using these headphones are really not great with their mic, so I was just saying that it's very applicable, and I found it to be useful to help understand things that you might face in life. Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool how it applies to like every single aspect of life, and you can kind of draw conclusions from anywhere that you're starting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Do you guys want to move on to the next question?
Sure.
So she says, why does Migley describe philosophy as plumbing? And do you think this analogy is helpful? What do you guys think?
Ethan, I think you might be muted on Zoom.
You guys hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but your camera turned off.
Oh, Yeah, my thing's stupid. I can't fix it. My bad.
Oh.
Well,
Ooh,
yeah,
I did think that she said that we were supposed to say our names at the beginning. Do we just say
Oh.
them now?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Ethan.
Connor,
I'm Donata.
Elizabeth.
alright. Sorry for interrupting, Ethan. Onward.
Oh. Oh yeah, you're good. No worries. Yeah, I like the analogy. I thought it was pretty helpful. I could see the correlation between the two, where they're both really important, but you don't see them necessarily. And the only time you really notice them is if you're consciously thinking about it. And you could almost kind of compare a plumber to like a philosopher, where when you're actually thinking about it, you have to call on them to um, kind of like for help, I guess.
Like you can use philosophers and philosophy in general as a way to kind of like clear out your mental trash in a sense.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super cool way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
totally how I saw it.
Yeah,
yeah, me too. And like used to like fix. You can use it to fix any problem you might have, like plumbing kind of thing. And
I didn't
then
really use it much when I was like actively doing the reading, but looking back now, it definitely would be helpful to kind of like be able to go through the readings and just look at it as kind of like in that sense that it's like clearing out, I don't even know, whatever, and you can kind of just like use it as a means to figure out whatever you're trying to figure out.
and then yeah, the second part of the question was just if you guys think it's a helpful analogy when you're going through like reading about philosophy.
I thought so.
Yeah, I think it's pretty helpful.
yeah, I couldn't really think of much more to say on it, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's useful. That is an interesting analogy.
And then the third question is why is quietude the goal of skepticism? What problem is it attending to resolve?
The way that I kind of interpreted that was like there are things that like our minds kind of naturally do to take us off of like almost like a calm or like quiet mental headspace in like anything. And I thought that the quietude was kind of like, I guess it's pretty not really symbolic, pretty direct of saying like the quietness of our mind. And for me at least, when I was reading through that paper or the whatever you call it, philosophical ideal was it was such a tough read, but like throughout it, like I just felt like it was very like almost like weirdly calming in a sense, even though I wasn't fully following every moment of it, but it totally brought me to like a quieter mental space, and I think that that was kind of the idea of it, and the way that he wrote. I'm assuming he's a skeptic in of himself, oh, and he was using that writing and like the way that he looks at life in general and everything that he believes in, and the way that he writes is intended to follow through how his mind directed him through his thoughts, and then that kind of in turn can do the same for anyone reading his work. I think it was, yeah, I'm not really sure. I think it's trying to solve the problem of just calming mental chaos and just bringing you into a more peace or calming space. And
Yeah,
skepticism makes this happen just because it's like it's looking at it every point of view. Like it's like there were little things that he would bring up of like if this or this, and then either way, they would come to the same conclusion of like a calm, which was kind of cool. I think that's like the overall goal of Quietude for me, at least.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Because like if people, I've noticed, like generally, even if you just have questions about life, you're thinking about things. Maybe it's even just on your mind. You know, like kind of bugging you or something. You know, just having everyone has questions about life. Everyone has insecurities about things, and thinking about these types of things. I've at least noticed for me is like and I think it's the same. It's similar to what he's talking about with the quietude. It's almost like a calming thing to think about, because you're not like getting, you're not exactly getting answers, but it's I don't know. It's like a, how do I explain it?
Like an acceptance of not necessarily having the answers, but like knowing that
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a good thing to think about too. And it really like it does calm your mind in a way. I'm not exactly sure why it's calming to think about these type of things, but I've noticed that too as well.
I agree. I think for me, whenever I get into that mindset of quiet, it just helps because I might not be thinking about the positive. I might not be asking myself any questions, but at the same time, I'm not like judging anything. And it's just peaceful, you know what I mean? That's just kind of how I thought about it. You just kind of reach that level of like mental peace, and you're not skeptic, you're not about everything that's going on in your life.
Yeah, I
yeah, one
agree.
of the
That
things that-
that makes sense. Yeah, basically, what I got out of it was quietude. Basically, leads to basically being suspended in judgment. That's basically the big thing I got out of it, which is basically that everyone's truth is kind of relative, and so by spending, basically, you're not as stressed out. I guess it calms you a little bit, and you're not taking things quite so seriously. You realize everybody's opinion is just that.
With what he just said, I think it's how do I say it? Your point of view of how you view things. So that's how it affects you. So when you go into that, you can see both sides of it and kind of, meet in the middle, if that makes sense.
totally
And
agree.
also just the peace of not having to commit to a specific idea or like a specific just belief in anything, not having to make any decision can be stressful, but at the same time it's can also you can just be calm and it's I don't know, I think it's a good way to avoid extra stress, and especially with anxiety and things like that can help a lot.
Yeah, instead of having like a constant inner battle of like one of the things that he mentioned was the whole good and bad thing. Like that there's always got to be like some perception of, oh, this is like the good way or this is the bad way, and kind of like removing that entirely because whatever it is you think is like right or wrong, you're gonna come into like that opposite opinion at one point, of course. And so finding that like middle ground of it's just all good. Like the quietude of there's no need to have the whole quarrel of good versus bad, assuming you're not actually doing something that's harming others. But yeah. Cool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's basically you become unconcerned with what you can't control, pretty much.
Nice. All right. Question 4. However you pronounce his name provides a general description of what philosophy is and what its value is. Do you see this picture represented in the Sextus Empiricus reading? If so, in what ways?
Uh,
I Okay,
I
good.
was gonna say that, kind of going off on the last question too, the way that Migley looks at philosophy is a way of like clearing up any problems and confusion that might be in your head. The Sextus, the way that he describes skepticism and then quietude, it's also a way to kind of clear
Yeah.
up that confusion that you might have in your head and just kind of reach that level of calmness.
Yeah, I think they both had similar views because I remember them mentioning that there was like two kind of like realms of wow, my camera's lagging. Two different realms of philosophy, like people who think that they like found the end, whatever they mean by that. And then the others who think that there's just like it's like an ongoing kind of like growth thing. And I think that they both kind of have a similar view of there's not necessarily like an end, it's just kind of like um and so I think that they have a similar view on philosophy, but I think it was a little bit different in the sense that with the first one, he was talking more about like that you actually are trying to certain problem you have and then using like certain routes in order to get out of it. Whereas in the second one, it was like a one and end all be all solution for kind of all. So they were a little bit different, but I do think that they both kind of had that general idea of philosophy where it's like it is kind of an overarching way that you can or path you can go down in order to find that mental quietude.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. Big difference I saw between the two was that Sextus basically categorized philosophers into the three types: uh, skeptics, academics, and dogmatists. Um, Midgley, I don't think she really categorized them so much, so that would probably be the major difference I noticed.
What did you guys find was most interesting about either of the writings?
I thought the most interesting thing about the second reading, the Sextus Empiricus, was the way he talks about stopping any judgment you might have, and how that can then lead to peace of mind. I don't know, I feel like I've always had the idea that philosophy is just extreme thinking about everything that goes on, just reflection and all of that, and then seeing that approach, um, I just wasn't really expecting it looking at philosophy. Yeah, just the way, I don't know, I always thought philosophy was just asking questions more and more, and just this idea that, you know, the moment you stop and the moment you stop trying to pick a side on everything, you can actually reach the, like I said, peace of mind.
What I found kind of interesting about the Sextus Empiricus reading was him talking about how we generally kind of dogmatically accept what has come before very readily, just like customs, types of thinking, and even just what has happened before as fact. And I thought that was really interesting that you pointed that out. Um, and that I forgot if he said something about kind of the critical analysis of it, but I just remember I'm trying to find it right now, but I just remember that being interesting that he pointed that out and talked about.
I thought it's super. I always had the perception of philosophy, and honestly, in my life in general, it's been very like kind of oriented around a sense and like trying to instead of just like letting go things that are like mentally taxing. I'd like over continue to think about them and try to like solve the problem. It wasn't necessarily a problem to solve, and, and interesting to see just like how philosophy in of itself isn't necessarily thinking super hard about things. I mean, it kind of is, but it's also more like, in my opinion, having the ability to just let things be, sort of, and then put that into words. So we're thinking it kind of on the other side of things. If that makes sense.
Do you guys wanna move on to question 6, or do you have like other, I don't know, other surprising things that surprised you?
Anyone has anything else? Okay.
I kind of my notes, so I had something, but I kind of remember the vague idea of what I was down about it.
Um, I guess the other question would be what other aspects of the text you want to discuss, you guys want to talk about, and why you think we should talk about them.
What would the other aspects even be?
Like maybe like, I don't know, I guess you could say like how you'd use them now, like how you can apply them to like the modern world. Um,
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. I think one big thing that humanity in general, just like I don't know, everyone around the world can get better about is with both themselves and people externally is the whole judgment thing that we were talking about and having the ability to just be around everyone and not have like these little even just like internal thoughts and like thought loops that we end up getting stuck in going down and kind of use the values that we learned from the text of that being able to not judge and just be present despite what's going on in your mind and just or letting those things go. It's a good way that you can apply them in real life, for me at least.
yeah, I think as of right now, it's definitely like something more people should learn about, or at least apply to their life, the ability to withhold judgment. Um, I think that'd be a good thing to talk about, or um, I don't know. What do you guys think? Other things you can discuss?
I mean, I agree with that as well. I think less judgment in general can benefit a lot of people, not even just for the people not being judged, but also for yourself, you know, because it's a lot healthier when you're not constantly so concerned with how someone else is living their life. But I mean, it's hard. Like if we just even just meeting a person, we automatically make a judgment of them, not intentionally. You know, maybe a judgment, maybe a bad judgment. You know, but it's hard not to, it's hard to really just, like he said, be and not make a judgment of every person, you know, or and try to fit them into what you think they are in your mind. But yeah, I agree. It's something that would be a lot better if people just generally didn't judge.
And I think the fact that now we can all constantly like just see what everyone else is doing. We always know what people are up to. We always know what, you know. It's so easy to judge and it's so easy to be judged. Um and it's just I feel like we're constantly exposed to like we can constantly see what like everyone else around us and I don't know. It's hard not to then think about it, you know. It's hard to get it out of your head. Like, oh, look at what this person doing. Look at this person doing, and you also end up judging yourself. I feel like you can, you know, compare a lot of what we do to other people nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, and what people like to do in general is they just like to. It's something that I've noticed myself doing a couple times. You know, where they just like, oh, look at this person who does this. That's so stupid. You know, and they like how I'm not stupid because I'm not doing this. You know, like let's say I'm driving or something. I've noticed myself making judgments of other drivers just because they're driving a certain way or something. I make a judgment about the person's character, even though that's not necessary. And I'm only just annoyed. I'm only just uh, troubling myself by um, getting annoyed by or judging them. And
Yeah, no,
I
I think that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. Being less opinionated, I think, is a lot of what it's about.
yeah,
with everything you guys said is also what I reflect on when I was reading that was of like judging myself, you know, what others are gonna think and it put in perspective, like it really doesn't matter. So therefore, when we all like you said, we all do it, you know, when we're going down the road, like you said, people driving the way they drive, it kind of makes me understand or put myself in their shoes in a better way instead of trying to judgment, trying to understand like what they're thinking or where they're coming from. So that kind of gave me the aspect of that.
like I've even thought to myself a similar thing. Like I've had times where I've done stupid things. I've had times where I've not paid attention before. I've had times where I didn't see the light turn green right away. You know, there's things that I do too. You know, I just got to remember that every time I see someone do something stupid. You know, like it could be something that's rarely ever happened for them, and it just happened this time. You know? So, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think this is pretty good for a first workshop.
You know what? It also made me realize that I don't question a lot of things, if that makes sense. I guess I'm not as skeptic as I thought I was when I was reading this.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I used to question literally every little aspect of my life and everything going on around me, and definitely changed my perspective.
I'm
Question
on I'm on the other side. I'm starting to question everything.
so I agree with him because I eventually came to a certain point where it's just like there's only so many things that you can keep questioning. You gotta accept some things at some point. You can question it later, you know, but can't always be racking your brain over that. But I mean, it's good to question things at the same time. You know,
A balance, right?
yeah.
Is there any other questions? Or was it those ones?
Yeah, I think it was just those 6.
Okay.
Alright.
You guys have anything else you wanna add?
Nothing for me. See what we thought about the first one.
Yeah, I'll stop.